Okay, for start, first, I will show you only one slide, okay, in my entire presentation, because I think it's more simple that you can listen than writing and reading and listening all at the same time. So here I have, this is the cover of my book. It's going to be published very soon, in a few weeks. It's called El Mundo Espiritual de la Ayahuasca, which is the spiritual world of ayahuasca. It is going to be here in Universo Ulises from Spain. Okay, there's the link. So if you want to find it, here you can find it. I know it is in Spanish, but today is very simple for translate. There are some applications on your cell phone. You just put the camera and you will have in English, okay? It's very easy. If someone wants me to send it to you, please let me know, okay? So what I will talk today, it's only a few parts of this research. I've been working with vegetalismo for 10 years. So today I will talk about plant spirit discovered through the scientific method. So I will start with one observation. Indigenous people from America and from other parts of the world, they live in the middle of nature. Okay, we know this, but let's think about this, okay? Because this is not so simple. These are very adverse contexts. It's not so easy to live in the middle of nature. I mean, if we will try to do that, probably we will all die, okay? So it's not so simple, right? And they live for 1,000 years in the middle of nature. And not only surviving, also they develop very complex cultural systems on the middle of nature. So for do this, of course they should develop a knowledge very connect to reality, okay? Very tied to reality. So this observation is the opposite that we used to think about animism, because we used to think about animism is something that it doesn't exist, like if they saw things that it doesn't exist, right? And animism is a central part of all the knowledge they develop, okay? So animism must be very tied to reality. Otherwise, they will not survive, okay? So we can see an example, a very simple example, on the medical practice, the knowledge they develop in the medical practice. We can understand this very easily in the physical treatment, the treatment with plants for the body, okay? Because when you study medical ethnobotany and medical anthropology, and when you go to rainforest, for example, for treat your body for something, and they apply these plants, they treatment, and they work, okay? You will notice that for discover this in middle of the rainforest where it's all full of plants, okay, they must develop a very deep knowledge about this. Because it's not that they just use the entire plant. They get to know which part of the plant, I mean the leaves, the seeds, the roots, which part, prepare in which specific way, apply in a also very specific way in a specific part of your body will work for heal, okay? So this is a very deep knowledge. It's not something so simple for discover. We can understand this because it's the more material part of the medical knowledge when it's healing to the body. But for us, for Western people, it's more hard to understand the spiritual realm of these same treatments. So try to understand this, I will use the Western etymology of a spirit. The etymology of a spirit is vital force, is life energy, is vitality. So when we talk about the spirit, we practically are recognizing an entity that it is alive, okay? Something has vitality, it is alive, okay? So when we recognize the quality of life. Western people only consider that human beings has a spirit. We don't consider other beings has a spirit, even if we know they are alive, like plants and animals, okay? We recognize they are alive, but we don't get them a spirit. Only we have one. That's our way to think about these things. But indigenous people, they consider many other elements of nature are alive, and they also have a spirit. So for indigenous people, being alive and having a spirit comes together, okay? It's not something separate, this comes together. So they understood that in the nature, there are many elements that are alive and they have a spirit, like the sun, like the mountains, like rivers, rain, okay? They consider all these was alive and also have a spirit. And when you study this, again, in anthropology, in ethnobotany, and when you try to understand what they mean, and not according to our thoughts, okay? If you try to understand what they try to say through this, you can understand that they consider that all these living things are alive because they provoke a certain influence on us, okay? On our own spirit, on our vital force, okay? So that's why indigenous people consider all the environment, it is full of spirit, and they were able to get an influence through all the environment. So they felt the sun can provoke an influence, the mountains can provoke an influence, the rain can do that, okay, on their own vital force, on their own spirit, and also in the other vital forms, in the other spirits. So if you consider this, we can understand why they felt this, that the influence of all the spirits were part of their daily life. And if we consider this, animism is the study of life. What indigenous people did, they study life. They study all these influences all around them, influences on them, and in between them, okay? Just a very simple example. Today is sunny outside, right? All of you were lunching in sun, you were having lunch on sun, right? We all adore sun, okay? So we can understand this. It's something very simple, I know, and it's a very small example considering what I'm talking about, but it's about this. They feel this, okay? They study, with the sensibility, they study these influences on the vital force. You can feel the sun today when you had lunch outside, okay? They study this. So animism is the study of life. Indigenous people were able to characterize these vital energies. They get this sensibility, so they characterize all these different influences, all these different spirits, according to the type of influence they exert, okay? So that's why they were able to describe these spirits. And you can notice in the stories, in the myth, you can notice they describe these spirits. They describe them as the same as we will talk about a person, right? They put some characteristic, they put a personality, okay? So these talk about the characteristic of these spirits. And they noticed some of these spirits provoke a positive influence on them, and other spirits provoke a more negative influence on them. That's why they said, for example, that some plants are doctores, right, in the rainforest, because they heal. They provoke a positive influence on our vital force. The same as a doctor do, actually, okay? So this spirit, these doctor plants, these vegetal spirits, they increase and they improve our vitality. This is the positive influence, okay? This happens when you are healed, when you receive a healing, okay? This increase and improve your vitality. From here, we can understand the definition of health that indigenous people had, which is restore your vitality. This is the same definition that all this medical system I've studied our medical system, the Hippocratical medical system, which is the origin from our current medical system. The Egyptians have the same definitions. Many indigenous people in America, like Aztecs and Maya from North America, I mean, we all understand the same about health, okay? Restoring our vitality, balance the forces. So an example of a negative influence of a spirit, it is illness. Indigenous people consider illness itself as a negative spirit, as a negative influence, right? So they consider illness itself as an entity because it diminishes our vitality. When we are sick, we feel this in our vitality. We feel diminished. Even if we have a physical problem, our spirit also diminished, right? So a beautiful example of a daily activity of indigenous people where you can see this vitality involved, it is hunting. I don't know if you heard, but it's common to listen in the rainforest that if a hunter cannot hunt, cannot bring an animal to home, he is sick. For the first moment, you may think, what this has to do with health, right? But it's very logical if you understand things in this way, because if you cannot bring an animal to home, you will not eat. And if you don't eat, you will get sick, so you will die, okay? So if you have a problem, if you're a hunter and you have problems for hunting, you can become sick and you are more near to death than to life. So that's why indigenous people develop all this ritual and knowledge around hunting for improved hunting, for heal hunters who have these problems. Also ayahuasca. It's in the past, also, and actually today, it is used for improve the health of hunters. Okay, if hunters have this disease and they cannot bring food, the shaman can use ayahuasca for heal him. There are many other plants. For example, purge plant. I don't know if you know purga. This is for vomiting. Plants that you intake for vomiting. Okay. There are many purge plants that can help for hunt, because, again, this is very logical. When you purge, you don't smell like human, because you sweat the plant that you purge, so you smell like this plant that you intake. So it's more easy to hunt, because animal will not smell you, okay? So there are many plants and rituals for hunting, for stay more in the health realm, okay? So indigenous people notice that there are some plants that work in this specific realm of the spirit, and they call the spiritual plants. Ayahuasca is one example. There are many others, okay? And you can ingest this plant in dietas. Dietas are traditional retreat. I will not go into this because it's a very long subject, but it's a way for intake plants. And they also notice that when you intake this plant, these specific spiritual plants, you intake them one and again and again and again, the same plant, you, at the end, you establish a relationship with this plant, because this plant has this specific effect, this specific influence on our vital force, and you will recognize this. There's something constant that will appear every time you ingest the same plant, the same variety, or the same species, okay? And they notice this, they get this sensibility, and they describe this as the spirit of the plant. So, one example. Well, that's why they say that when you ingest a plant, you incorporate the spirit, because you incorporate this vital force, this influence on your own spirit. So one example is ayahuasca. So I think I don't know how many of you would try ayahuasca, but if we talk about what do you think about her spirit, how can you describe her? Probably you will say it's a wise spirit, it's strong and powerful, it's a healer, right? Probably you will say this. You will describe in this way the kind of influence she provokes on you. So you will describe her in this way, because actually she is wise because she lived teachings, right? She give you learnings. She is healer because she heal you, actually. She give you health. She can give diagnosis, or she can direct, make a healing process with you. And she's very strong and powerful because once you intake, you cannot escape, right? So you will describe very powerful with character. She's very direct for communicate things. So if you notice, the way we can describe her spirit is the way she works with us. There are many other examples. A very classic example is, I don't know if you heard, but in the rainforest, they said some plants are jealous. So what this means when a plant is jealous? This means that this plant needs space for work, okay? So you cannot combine this plant with another plant. That's why it's jealous. She just needs this space for herself for work, okay? This is not so rare, because in our own medicine, Western medicine, some medications cannot be combined, right? Like psychedelics shouldn't be combined. I will not recommend to intake 10 psychedelics at the same time, for example. You will not feel their own spirit. You will not give them the space they need for work. So this means, for example, in the rainforest, when someone says that a plant is jealous, this refers to the plant needs space for work, and you need to follow the rules. There are some rules for intake plants. And again, this is not so rare. We have medication that needs to follow some rules. I mean, for example, some medicines should be intake after you eat something, for example. Or you need to follow some schedules, right? You intake an antibiotic and you cannot just take 2 now and 1 hour later another. I mean, there's an order. They have in the rainforest the same order for intake the plants. So something very, very beautiful also about the animism, this study of life indigenous people made, it is that they not only observe the invisible part of the spirit, which is what I already talked you about. They also observe the visible part of the spirit, which is much more real, what I just said now, I know. But I will give you some examples, because this happens a lot. When you will intake a plant for dieta, and the shaman, the vegetalista says, okay, this plant works in this way, and he describes the spirit, okay? He's describing the influence you will get, okay? And happen a lot that if you observe the plant, you will notice this in the plant itself, in the material part of the plant, because you can notice the same characteristic on the morphological characteristic of the plant, or also in the way this plant behave in the environment. So, for example, renaco. Renaco is a tree that have branches with leaves. But also, besides that, renaco have some kind of vines, very skinny vines and long vines, okay? With these vines, renaco do this. Renaco hug himself, okay? And renaco hug other renacs around or other plants. Renaco hug everything, I mean, with these vines, okay? You can see this. When you intake this in dieta, the vegetalista or the shaman tells you, okay, renaco, it is used for enchant yourself with your life, Fulfill yourself, enchant with life, with yourself, with your project, with things that you want to do, okay? For feel like you are in love with life. This is the use of Renaco, for feel that you are in love with life. So when you intake Renaco, it's like if you hug yourself, okay? This is the experience you will have in your vitality. It's like if you will have yourself, you will hug people around you, your projects, your dreams, okay? There are many of these examples. Another example is Bobinsana, which is a tree that Bobinsana likes to grow near water, near rivers, okay? And in the rainy season in Amazon, it really rains. I mean, if you think here is rainy, no, you don't know nothing about rain. I mean, the Amazon River grows kilometers, okay, of water. There are kilometers of more water and many meters. I mean, there's a lot of water. So if there are plants near rivers, the water grows and the water just go out all these plants. But not Bobinsana. Bobinsana have these so strong roots that nothing can take her out. So Bobinsana just hold herself, no matter the amount of water that is going through it, okay? So when you intake Bobinsana in Dieta in a traditional retreat, the shaman, the vegetalista, explain you that Bobinsana is for hold storms in your life, okay? This is the use of the plant for your spirit, for hold storm of your life. So if you are living in a difficult moment, you should intake Bobinsana. Because of these roots, you will hold yourself no matter what you are living. Also, you can use Bobinsana in case you want to, if you want to establish in your life, if you want to establish a particular activity or yourself in a place, you see, so if you want to get more established, you should drink Bobinsana because she will give you this force. So there are many examples. Of course, we cannot see in all the examples because this is a very deep knowledge, and like any kind of knowledge, we can get access easily to only a part. And only few people can get access to a more deep part. Just think about any kind of knowledge, like math, for example. I'm not good in math. I actually count with my fingers. But some people is very good in math. They can get to a more deep understanding. I will not, for example. So this is the same. Another example of this spiritual part that can be visible, it's in different varieties of ayahuasca. In the psychedelic cultures and in ethnobotanic cultures, nobody talk about varieties of ayahuasca. I don't know why, but there's not only one plant, okay? There are many varieties of ayahuasca, and different indigenous people put their own names to them according to the effects they provoke, and also according the way the plant grows and the characteristics. So, for example, there is ayahuasca cielo. Cielo means sky, okay? So ayahuasca cielo likes to grow very, very, she likes to go to the more tall branches of the more tall trees. Ayahuasca cielo try to search the sky, okay? This is the way this plant grows. And also the effect, it's very light, the effect of ayahuasca cielo. And there are other varieties, for example, black ayahuasca, which call llana puma. That's Quechua. Llana means black in Quechua, puma means jaguar. So it's a black jaguar, if you want to translate the Quechua name. But it's known as black ayahuasca. Black ayahuasca grows in a different way. She behaves in a different way in the environment. So she don't try to search the light. She just grows more like here, like it's more like a bush. It's a vine, but she grows more like a bush. And it's different. The leaves are more big, are more dark green, and also the effect is different. If you drink it, the effect is more physically. It's not so light, okay? It's not so, with so many visions. She don't have many visions, actually. It's more in the body. It's more for purge, okay? So it's more dark, also the vision. So I could keep going with examples. There are so many. But at the end, what I'm trying to tell you is that indigenous people, they develop scientific method for develop this knowledge, because scientific method, it is observation, it is experimental knowledge. They try one and again the plants, and they discover this with their sensibility, okay? And scientific method is also evidence-based knowledge, which is what I'm explaining here, okay? So animism comes from a scientific method. We are not the only one that develops scientific method. It's not something modern, actually. It's very ancient. And there's no other way that they really survive and live 1,000 years in the middle. We will set in the middle of nowhere. They will set in the middle of a spiritual realm, right? There's no other way. So I'm pretty sure about what I'm saying. They just develop scientific method for animism. Thank you.